the betrayal and the stranger, the wedding that never was. Arya Blackwood stood before the mirror in her wedding dress, and for the first time in months, she allowed herself to believe in happiness. The gown was simple but beautiful, white silk that caught the afternoon light streaming through the window. Her dark hair was braided with silver flowers, and her gray eyes sparkled with hope she hadn't felt in years. Today was supposed to be the best day of her life. Today, she would officially mate with Dante Silvercrest, the alpha of the Highland Pack and the wolf the moon goddess had chosen as her destined partner. Or so she had believed for 3 years. "You look beautiful, Arya," her sister Mira said softly, adjusting the veil. But there was something in Myra's voice that made Arya's stomach twist with sudden anxiety. "What's wrong?" Arya asked, turning to face her sister. "You've been acting strange all morning." Mira looked away, tears filling her eyes. "I can't let you walk down that aisle without knowing the truth." "I'm so sorry, Arya. I should have told you weeks ago." Cold dread settled in Arya's chest. "Told me what?" "Dante has been seeing someone else. Lady Serafina Goldmane from the royal pack. They've been together for months, and he's planning to reject you right after the ceremony. He only agreed to this wedding because breaking a mate bond publicly gives him political power. Some ancient law about proving strength through sacrifice." The words hit Arya like physical blows. She gripped the edge of the vanity table to keep from falling. "That's not possible. Dante loves me. He told me he loves me."
"I'm sorry," Mira whispered.
"I saw them together last week in the gardens, and I heard him talking with his advisors about the rejection ceremony." "Arya, he's using you. The public destruction." Arya didn't want to believe it. She told herself Mira must be mistaken, that there was some explanation. But as she walked down the aisle toward Dante, she saw the cold calculation in his eyes. She saw Lady Serafina sitting in the front row, wearing a dress almost as elaborate as Arya's own, a cruel smile playing on her perfect lips. And she knew. Mira had been telling the truth. The ceremony proceeded with painful slowness. Arya went through the motions like a puppet, speaking her vows in a voice that sounded hollow to her own ears. Dante's vows were perfect, practiced, delivered with the right amount of emotion to convince the watching crowd. Then came the moment when they were supposed to complete the mate bond, to seal their connection forever before the moon goddess and their pack. Dante took both her hands in his, and his smile turned cruel. "I, Dante Silvercrest, alpha of the Highland Pack, reject you, Arya Blackwood, as my mate and partner." The words echoed through the great hall, followed by shocked gasps from the gathered wolves. Pain exploded through Arya's chest as the partial mate bond they shared began to tear apart. She fell to her knees, unable to breathe, unable to process what was happening. "Why?" she managed to gasp, looking up at the man she had loved. "Because you're weak," Dante said clearly, making sure everyone could hear. "An Omega with no family connections, no political value, no special abilities. You were useful for establishing that I could form a mate bond, which proves my legitimacy as alpha. But now I need a real partner, someone worthy of standing beside me." He gestured to Lady Serafina, who rose gracefully and walked to his side. "Lady Serafina Goldmane of the Royal Pack has agreed to be my chosen mate. A true partnership based on strength and nobility, not the moon goddess's random selection." The pain of rejection was so intense that Arya couldn't even cry. She knelt there in her wedding dress, in front of hundreds of witnesses, feeling her heart shatter into pieces. The mate bond continued to dissolve, each second bringing fresh agony. "You can't do this," she whispered. "The bond. The moon goddess chose us." "The moon goddess made a mistake," Dante replied coldly. "I'm correcting it. Now get out of my territory. You have 1 hour to leave before I have you forcibly removed." Into the storm. Arya didn't remember leaving the hall. She didn't remember tearing off the wedding dress or changing into simple traveling clothes. She moved through shock and pain like a ghost, her body operating on pure survival instinct, while her mind remained frozen in that moment of public humiliation. She walked out of the Highland Pack territory as rain began to fall. The weather matched her mood perfectly, dark clouds rolling in to block out the sun, thunder rumbling in the distance. By the time she reached the neutral lands between territories, the storm was in full force. Arya knew she should find shelter. The forbidden forest ahead was dangerous, full of rogues and wild predators. But she couldn't bring herself to care. What did danger matter when her entire world had just collapsed? What did survival matter when the person she loved most had destroyed her in front of everyone she knew? So she kept walking into the storm, into the forbidden territory where pack wolves never ventured. The rain soaked through her clothes, and wind tore at her hair. Lightning flashed overhead, illuminating twisted trees and dark paths. She walked for hours, lost in pain and grief, until her foot caught on a root and she fell hard to the muddy ground. As she lay there, part of her wanted to just stay down, to give up and let the forest take her. But then she heard something, a sound that cut through even her grief, a whimper of pain, desperate and fading. The wounded wolf. Arya forced herself to her feet and followed the sound. She found the wolf in a small clearing, collapsed beside a fallen tree. Even in the darkness and rain, she could see it was huge, clearly an alpha wolf in shifted form. Its fur was black as midnight, but matted with blood from multiple wounds. The worst injury was on its shoulder where silver burns marked the flesh. Someone had attacked this wolf with silver weapons, the one metal that could truly harm their kind. The poison was spreading, turning the surrounding fur gray and the skin beneath black with corruption. "Oh, goddess," Arya breathed, all her own pain momentarily forgotten. This wolf was dying. Without treatment for silver poisoning, it would be dead by morning. Every practical instinct told her to walk away. This was clearly an alpha wolf, probably involved in some territory dispute or pack war. Getting involved could bring more danger than she could handle. And she had her own problems to deal with. But looking at the wolf's suffering, at the way its golden eyes watched her with fading hope, Arya couldn't abandon it. She had been abandoned and rejected today, left to suffer alone. She wouldn't do the same to another living being, even if that being was a dangerous predator who might kill her once healed. "I'm going to help you," she said quietly, kneeling beside the massive wolf. "But you need to stay calm. I know it hurts, but I have to remove the silver before the poison spreads to your heart." The wolf made a low sound that might have been agreement or might have been a growl of pain. Arya chose to interpret it as permission, the healing touch. She had no medical supplies, no tools, nothing but her bare hands and basic knowledge of healing. But Omega's had natural healing abilities, even if hers had never been particularly strong. She had to try. Arya placed her hands on the silver burn, flinching at the heat radiating from the corrupted flesh. She closed her eyes and focused, reaching for that small spark of healing power that lived in all Omegas. Usually, it was barely enough to help minor scrapes and bruises heal faster. But tonight, something was different. Tonight, raw emotion and desperation unlocked something deeper within her. Power flooded through her hands, bright and hot, and stronger than anything she had ever felt before. The wolf beneath her hands tensed and then relaxed as the healing energy flowed into its body. Arya felt the silver poison responding to her power, felt it being drawn out of corrupted tissue and neutralized. She had no idea how she was doing this, only that it was working. Black liquid began seeping from the wound, silver corruption purged by her healing magic. The wolf whimpered but held still, seeming to understand she was helping. It took nearly an hour of constant effort before Arya finally felt the last of the silver poison leave the wolf's system. She slumped back, exhausted, her hands shaking from the massive energy expenditure. She had never used that much power in her entire life. She hadn't even known she possessed that much power. The wolf slowly rose to its feet, testing its healed shoulder. The burns were gone, replaced by healthy skin beneath the black fur. The other wounds from whatever fight it had been in were also healing now that the silver was no longer poisoning its system. Those golden eyes fixed on Arya with an intensity that made her shiver. There was intelligence there, deep and calculating. This was no ordinary wolf. This was someone powerful, someone important. The mysterious mark. The wolf took a step toward her, and Arya tensed, suddenly aware of how vulnerable she was. She had just spent all her energy healing this creature. If it wanted to hurt her, she would have no way to defend herself. But the wolf didn't attack. Instead, it lowered its massive head and gently pressed its forehead against hers. Warmth flooded through Arya, different from the healing power but just as intense. For a moment, she felt a connection, a bond forming between them that had nothing to do with the mate bond she had just lost. Then the wolf pulled back and did something extraordinary. It lifted one massive paw and carefully, gently, pressed it against her left wrist. More warmth, more power, and when the paw lifted, Arya gasped. A mark had appeared on her skin, glowing faintly silver in the darkness. It looked like a wolf paw print surrounded by crescent moons and stars. Beautiful and intricate and completely impossible. "What did you just do?" Arya whispered, staring at the mark. The wolf made a sound that was almost like a purr, then turned and disappeared into the darkness of the forest, moving with surprising speed for a creature that had been near death moments before. Arya sat there in the rain, staring at the mark on her wrist as it slowly faded from glowing silver to what looked like a permanent silver tattoo beneath her skin. She had no idea what it meant. She had no idea what she had just done or what kind of wolf she had saved. Shelter and reflection. As adrenaline faded, exhaustion crashed over Arya like a wave. She needed shelter, needed rest, needed to process everything that had happened today. The storm was still raging, and she was soaked to the bone. She found a small cave nearby, barely big enough for her to curl up in but enough to get out of the rain. As she huddled there, shivering and alone, the events of the day finally caught up with her. The rejection, the humiliation, the pain of losing Dante, the strange encounter with the wolf, the impossible healing power she had somehow accessed, the mysterious mark now permanently etched on her wrist. Arya should have been crying. She should have been devastated. And part of her was. The wound of Dante's rejection still ached like a physical injury. But another part of her, a part that was growing stronger with each passing moment, felt something different. Anger. Not the hot, explosive kind, but cold and sharp and focused. Dante had used her. He had lied to her for months, maybe years. He had let her believe they had a future together, all while planning to publicly destroy her for political gain. He had taken her love and her trust and her hope, and he had crushed them in front of hundreds of witnesses. And for what? To prove he was strong enough to reject a mate bond? To form a political alliance with a noble family? To show everyone that he valued status over the moon goddess's choice? "He called me weak," Arya whispered to the darkness, touching the mark on her wrist. "He said I had no value, no special abilities, nothing worth keeping." But she had just saved a dying wolf using power she didn't know she possessed. She had walked into forbidden territory without fear. She had survived the worst day of her life and was still breathing, still fighting, still here. Maybe she wasn't as weak as Dante believed. Maybe she had never been weak at all. Maybe she had just been with someone who made her feel small because he was threatened by any strength that wasn't his own. The vow. As dawn began to break and the storm finally cleared, Arya made herself a promise. She would survive this. She would become stronger. And someday, somehow, Dante Silvercrest would regret the day he rejected her. Not because she wanted him back. That love had died the moment he spoke those cruel words. But because he would see what he had thrown away. He would see her rise from the ashes of his rejection and become something he could never break again. She looked at the mark on her wrist one more time, tracing its intricate pattern with her finger. She didn't know what it meant or what kind of wolf she had saved, but she felt, deep in her soul, that last night had changed everything. The weak Omega who had been rejected was gone. In her place was someone new. Someone who had discovered hidden power in the darkest moment. Someone who had saved a life when her own life was falling apart. Someone who would not stay broken. "Thank you," Arya whispered. Not sure if she was thanking the moon goddess or the mysterious wolf or just the universe in general. "Thank you for showing me I'm stronger than I knew." As the sun rose over the forbidden forest, Arya Blackwood took her first steps into a new life. She didn't know where she was going. She didn't know what would happen next. But she knew, with absolute certainty, that she would never be that helpless, heartbroken girl in a wedding dress again. The rejection had been meant to destroy her. Instead, it had freed her. And that freedom, combined with the strange new power awakening within her, would change everything. In the distance, a wolf howled, the sound carrying through the morning air. Arya smiled, touching her marked wrist once more. Her story was just beginning. Rise from the ashes. 6 months later, the healer of the Borderlands. The small settlement that had grown around Arya's cottage was nothing like a traditional pack territory. It was a collection of outcasts, rogues who had left their packs, rejected mates, and wolves who simply didn't fit into the rigid pack hierarchy. They called it Haven, and they called Arya their healer. She stood in her garden, harvesting herbs in the early morning light. Her cottage was simple but sturdy, built with her own hands over the past 6 months. The garden had become legendary in the Borderlands, growing plants that shouldn't survive in this climate, producing herbs with unusual potency. The mark on her wrist pulsed gently as she worked, a constant reminder of that night in the storm. Arya had learned to channel its power, to use the strange energy it provided to enhance her natural healing abilities. She still didn't fully understand what the wolf had given her, but she had learned to use it. Miss Arya. A young wolf named Tommy came running up the path, his face pale with worry. It's my sister. She's burning with fever, and nothing we've tried is working. Arya immediately set down her basket and grabbed her healing kit. Take me to her. Tommy's sister was indeed in bad shape, her small body racked with shivers despite the blankets piled on her. Arya placed her hands on the child's forehead and let her power flow, the mark on her wrist glowing softly as she worked. The healing that had once exhausted her completely now came easily. Over the past 6 months, she had healed broken bones, cured infections, even saved a wolf who had been poisoned by nightshade. Each healing made her stronger, taught her more about the depths of her abilities. Within minutes, the fever broke and color returned to the child's cheeks. Tommy's mother wept with gratitude, trying to offer payment that Arya gently refused. She never charged for healing. The wolves of Haven gave what they could, food, or help with repairs, or simply their loyalty, and that was enough. Whispers of power. As Arya walked back to her cottage, she noticed a group of travelers at the settlement's edge. They were cleaner and better dressed than most who came to Haven, clearly from an established pack rather than borderland rogues. That's her. One of them whispered loudly enough for Arya's enhanced hearing to catch. The healer, they say, can cure anything. Some say she's blessed by the moon goddess herself. I heard she brought someone back from the brink of death, another added. They say she can purge silver poisoning with just a touch. Arya kept her expression neutral as she passed them, but inside, she felt a mixture of pride and concern. Her reputation was spreading beyond the Borderlands. That could bring opportunities, but it could also bring danger. Later that evening, as she sat in her cottage reviewing her herb supplies, there was a knock at her door. She opened it to find Marcus, a former pack warrior who served as Haven's unofficial leader. We need to talk, he said, his expression serious. There are rumors, Arya, about you, about your power, and about wolves from major packs asking questions. What kind of questions? Arya asked, inviting him inside. Where you came from, what pack you belong to, and... Marcus hesitated. There are also rumors about Alpha Dante's territory. Strange things happening. Crops failing, water sources drying up, warriors suddenly falling ill with mysterious ailments. Some wolves are saying it's a curse. Arya's hand unconsciously moved to her marked wrist. She had been so focused on building her new life that she hadn't thought much about Dante or the Highland Pack in months. What does that have to do with me? Some of the Highland Pack refugees who've come here say the problems started right after Dante's rejection ceremony. They say the moon goddess is punishing him for rejecting his true mate. Marcus studied her carefully. Is there any truth to that? I don't know, Arya answered honestly. I've been here, healing people, building a life. I haven't cast any curses or called down divine punishment. But even as she said it, she wondered. The mark on her wrist had been pulsing more strongly lately, especially at night. Sometimes she dreamed of a massive black wolf with golden eyes, and in those dreams, she felt power flowing between them like a river. The Alpha King's arrival. 3 days later, Haven was thrown into chaos by the arrival of an enormous convoy. Dozens of wolves in formal armor, carrying banners that bore the symbol of the Northern Territories, the crown and crescent moon of the Alpha King himself. Arya watched from her cottage window as the procession made its way through the settlement. At its head rode a man on a midnight black horse, and even from a distance, Arya could feel the power radiating from him. This was an alpha unlike any she had encountered, commanding and dangerous. The convoy stopped directly in front of her cottage. The lead rider dismounted in one fluid motion, and as he turned toward her home, Arya's breath caught in her throat. Golden eyes, black hair, a face that was hauntingly familiar even though she had only seen it in wolf form. It was him, the wolf she had saved in the storm. Miss Arya Blackwood. His voice was deep and rich, carrying the authority of absolute power. I am Kieran Nightshade, Alpha King of the Northern Territories. I have been searching for you for 6 months. Arya stepped out onto her porch, her heart pounding. Why? Kieran's golden eyes locked onto hers, and she saw recognition flare in their depths. Because you saved my life when I was dying from silver poisoning. Because you gave me this. He held up his left hand, and Arya gasped. On his wrist was a mark identical to hers, the silver wolf paw print surrounded by crescent moons and stars. It glowed softly in the afternoon light, pulsing in perfect rhythm with her own mark. What we did that night, Kieran continued, his voice low enough that only she could hear, was form a soul bond, rarer than even a true mate bond, formed only between wolves who save each other's lives under the light of a full moon during a storm. We are connected, Arya. Your power feeds mine, and mine feeds yours. That's impossible, Arya whispered. I didn't know. I didn't mean to. Neither did I, Kieran said, and for the first time she saw vulnerability in his expression. I was in those woods because I had been ambushed by assassins hired by my enemies. They used silver weapons and left me to die far from my territory. You found me by chance, or perhaps by fate, and you saved me without knowing who I was. He took a step closer. After I healed and returned to my territory, I tried to find you, but you had vanished. It took months of searching, following rumors of a powerful healer in the borderlands, before I finally located you. The truth revealed. Kieran gestured to his guards, who brought forward a large chest. I have come to repay my debt and to offer you an alliance. But first, you need to understand something about your former mate, Dante Silvercrest. Arya tensed at the name. What about him? He is a traitor, Kieran said bluntly. For the past 3 years, Dante has been secretly working with the Shadow Collective, a group of rogues trying to overthrow the pact system and seize power. He rejected you not just for political gain, but because you were too compassionate, too observant. You would have eventually noticed his treasonous activities. The words hit Arya like a physical blow. You're lying. I wish I was. Kieran opened the chest, revealing stacks of documents and correspondence. This is evidence my spies have gathered. Dante has been supplying the Shadow Collective with information about pact defenses, shipment routes, and vulnerable territories. The marriage to Lady Seraphina was cover. Her family is loyal to me, and he needed to remove suspicion by aligning himself with a noble house. Arya's hands trembled as she looked through the documents. Letters in Dante's handwriting, detailed plans for attacks on merchant convoys, lists of pack weaknesses. It was all there, undeniable proof that the man she had loved was a traitor to all wolfkind. Why are you showing me this? She asked quietly. Because the Highland Pack is one of the largest territories in the region, Kieran explained. If Dante succeeds in his plans, hundreds of wolves will die, and the entire pack system could collapse into war. I need someone who can get close to him, someone he won't suspect, Someone powerful enough to gather more evidence and help me stop him. You want me to spy on him? Arya's laugh was bitter. He rejected me publicly, humiliated me in front of hundreds of witnesses. Why would he ever let me near him again? Kieran's smile was sharp and calculating. Because you're going to return not as the weak Omega he discarded, but as my ally. As someone who has gained power and status, someone he will want to observe and potentially recruit to his cause. The proposal. This is insane, Arya said. But even as she protested, her mind was racing. The idea of facing Dante again terrified her. But the idea of making him pay for everything he had done, the rejection, the lies, the treason, that was intoxicating. I know it's a lot to ask, Kieran said, his voice gentler now. But Arya, you have power he can't imagine. Over the past 6 months, you've become one of the strongest healers in the territories. That kind of ability is rare and valuable. If you return with my endorsement, as an ally of the Alpha King himself, Dante will be forced to acknowledge you. And what do I get out of this? Arya asked, meeting his golden gaze directly. Besides revenge, what's in it for me? Training, Kieran answered immediately. You've been working with your healing abilities, but the soul bond gives you access to much more. Combat skills, enhanced strength, abilities that could make you nearly unstoppable. I can teach you to use them. He paused, then added quietly, and you get justice, not just for yourself but for every wolf Dante has hurt or plans to hurt. You get to save lives and stop a war before it begins. Arya looked down at the mark on her wrist, feeling it pulse with power. 6 months ago, she had been broken and helpless, crying in a cave while the man she loved destroyed her. Now she was strong, respected, capable of things she had never dreamed possible. If I agree to this, she said slowly, I need guarantees. I won't be treated as a pawn or a tool. I want full information, equal partnership in planning, and your word that you won't abandon me if things go wrong. You have it, Kieran said without hesitation. The soul bond means your safety is literally tied to my own survival. I can't afford to abandon you even if I wanted to, which I don't. Training begins. Arya accepted Kieran's offer, and within a week, she had moved to a secure location at the edge of his territory to begin training. The estate was beautiful and private, staffed with guards who treated her with the respect due to an honored guest rather than a spy in training. Kieran was a demanding but patient teacher. Each morning began with combat training, teaching Arya to fight with both weapons and her natural wolf abilities. He was shocked to discover she had never been taught proper self-defense. How did you survive 6 months in the Borderlands without combat training? He asked during their 3rd session, watching as she finally managed to execute a proper defensive stance. I avoided fights and used my healing to make allies, Arya replied, wiping sweat from her forehead. Turns out people are less likely to attack you when you've saved their children or cured their mate's illness. Clever, Kieran admitted, but not always enough. You need to be able to protect yourself. The afternoons were spent developing her other abilities. Kieran taught her to access the enhanced strength the soul bond provided, to move with supernatural speed, to sense other wolves' intentions through their energy. Most surprisingly, he taught her to fight in wolf form. Arya had always avoided shifting, believing her wolf was weak because she was an Omega. But with Kieran's guidance and the soul bond's power, her wolf form became something magnificent, silver-furred and graceful, smaller than an alpha but faster and more agile. You're not weak, Kieran told her after she successfully took down a training dummy while shifted. You never were. You were just surrounded by wolves who needed you to believe you were weak so they could feel strong. His words struck something deep in Arya's heart. How many years had she spent believing she was less than others simply because they told her so? The connection deepens. As weeks of training passed, Arya began to notice something else developing between her and Kieran. The soul bond meant they could sense each other's emotions and sometimes even share thoughts. But beyond that supernatural connection, there was genuine friendship and respect. Kieran treated her as an equal, asking her opinions on strategy and listening when she spoke. He shared stories of his life, The burden of being Alpha King, the loneliness of a position where everyone wanted something from you, and the constant threat of assassination. Why were you alone in those woods the night I found you? Arya asked one evening as they reviewed maps of Dante's territory. Surely the Alpha King doesn't travel without guards. I do when I'm trying to find traitors in my own court, Kieran replied grimly. I had evidence that someone close to me was feeding information to the Shadow Collective. I left my territory in secret to meet with a spy, but I was ambushed. Turned out the traitor was my own head of security. Did you find him? Arya asked. Eventually, after you saved me and I recovered, I rooted out the conspiracy. 3 of my most trusted advisors were working against me. His expression darkened. That's why I understand the sting of betrayal, Arya. I know what it's like to have someone you trusted destroy everything. They sat in comfortable silence for a moment, then Kieran added quietly, I'm glad the moon goddess led you to me that night, not just because you saved my life, but because I needed to meet someone who still believed in helping others despite being hurt themselves. The plan takes shape. 2 months after beginning her training, Arya was ready. She could fight, defend herself, use her enhanced abilities, and maintain perfect control even under pressure. More importantly, she had helped Kieran develop a comprehensive plan to expose Dante's treason. The Highland Pack is hosting a summit in 3 weeks, Kieran explained, spreading out the latest intelligence reports. All the major packs will be required to send representatives. It's the perfect opportunity to observe Dante and gather evidence. He'll recognize me, Arya pointed out. He will, Kieran agreed. But you won't be going as Arya Blackwood, rejected Omega. You'll be going as Arya Nightshade, my cousin and representative. A powerful healer who has my complete trust and authority. Arya's eyebrows rose. Nightshade? You're giving me your family name. It's the only way to give you the protection and status you need, Kieran said. With my name, even Dante can't dismiss or harm you without risking war with the Northern Territories. He pulled out an ornate document, already signed and sealed with his official mark. This is a formal adoption into the Nightshade family, making you nobility with all the rights and protections that entails. If you accept it. Arya stared at the document, her mind reeling. 3 months ago, she had been nobody, a rejected Omega living in the borderlands. Now the Alpha King himself was offering to make her family. Why would you do this for me? She asked quietly. Kieran met her gaze directly. Because the soul bond means we're already family in the ways that matter. Because you deserve recognition for your strength and abilities. And because I trust you, Arya. Completely. She took the document with trembling hands, reading through the formal language that would change her status forever. At the bottom was a space for her signature. If I sign this, she said slowly, there's no going back. Dante will know I've aligned myself with you. He'll see it as a betrayal. Good. Kieran's smile was fierce. Let him see what he threw away. Let him understand that rejecting you was the biggest mistake of his miserable, traitorous life. A new identity. Arya signed the document, and everything changed. Within days, word spread through all the territories that the Alpha King had adopted a new family member, a powerful healer named Arya Nightshade who would represent his interests at the upcoming summit.